everybody's attention? Shortly we're going to begin, and I want to give you all the rules since this is televised and recorded. Please, before we start the taping of the event, and we're going to broadcast this live, we want to make sure that we're nonpartisan, so that means no posters or buttons or any advertisements in this room. They can be out in the lobby. And then because it is being video recorded and shown live on the local channel Access 15, please remain as quiet as possible so we can hear the candidates, and hold your applause to the end. We model civil interaction at all our league events, so no yelling out, interrupting, or otherwise behaving inappropriately. And please silence your cell phones so they don't ring, and please no flash photography. Okay.
This is number 1.
Got it?
This is 2?
No. He's ready? Okay. And we're going to begin recording this. Hi. We're going to begin recording in just a second. I want to make sure the technician's aware of that. And then I'm going to begin with some announcements. Okay. Well, welcome to the Hayward Forum for School Board Candidates, conducted by the League of Women Voters Eden area. Our league represents Hayward, Castro Valley, San Leandro, San Lorenzo, Fairview, Cherryland, and Ashland. My name is Penny Peck, and I'm currently the president of the Eden Area League of Women Voters. I'm also happen to be vice president of the San Lorenzo School Board. Throughout our history, the League of Women Voters has been providing opportunities for candidates seeking public office to take their case directly to the voters. League candidate forums are an expected part of the political campaign for every level of public office. We have a long-standing reputation of fair, unbiased, and competent service to voters. The purpose of this forum is to provide voters with information that will help them make an informed choice when they cast their ballots. The League of Women Voters promotes political responsibility through informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League is a nonpartisan political organization, which means although we often do advocate for positions on political issues, we do not ever support or oppose any political party or candidate. This forum is part of our voter education service to the public. Our candidate forums and interviews are controlled by the League and not by the candidates. And before we begin, there are a few things I'm going to share about how we will proceed. The candidates received all of this information ahead of time. We have the 3 candidates tonight, and of course you know there's other candidates for this office who could not attend. Some of the candidates could not attend, but they sent representatives. For example, April Oquendo has a representative out in the lobby, so you might see those representatives at the end of this that you can talk to out here in the lobby. This is a 1-hour forum. All candidates will have 1 minute to make an opening statement. The order has been determined by a drawing. During the opening statements, our assistants will walk around and pick up questions submitted by the audience members. All questions must be in the form of a question and not statements. Questions will be delivered up here to my friend Janice Friesen, who will sort the questions, and we'll ensure that we'll try to cover as wide an array of the issues as possible within our time constraint. We'll try, but we may not be able to get to every question submitted. Often, more than one audience member will submit a question on the same topic, and so we often combine those into one question on that topic. All candidates receive the same question and have 1 minute to respond, and we rotate as to who goes first. So be sure your question is not aimed at one single candidate. Whatever question you write on that card will be given or asked of each of the 3 candidates. And we will conclude with a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate. Our league timekeepers will keep track of the time and signal the candidates when there's 30 seconds left, 15 seconds, or just 15, when there's just 15 seconds left, and then when they must stop. And we want to thank our timers, Iwa Zielinski and Marian Honda. In the interest of serving the voters, we've cautioned the candidates to refrain from negative attacks on each other. For the same reason, we expect the audience to give each candidate an opportunity to be heard. This is not a town hall meeting format. We will not be taking comments directly from the audience. Also, in deference to our limited time, we ask you to hold your applause to the end. Now that you're familiar with the format, please help me greet the candidates. Our candidate in the first seat here is William McGee. Next up, we have Lisa Brunner. And in the third seat is Ken Rowden. Yes, give them a big welcome. Thank you. And while they're giving their opening statements and the first few questions, if you have a question you want to ask, be sure to raise your hand so one of our wonderful helpers, Linda or Stephanie, can bring you a card, and we'll collect the cards also after you've written what you want to ask. And also, candidates, while I'm asking a question, if you need me to repeat the question, don't hesitate to ask. I will be glad to do that. So I think we're ready to begin with the opening statement. So we'll begin with our candidate in the first seat, William McGee.
All right, and we have 1 minute for this part, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is William McGee, running for Hayward School Board. I'm an incumbent. I've been on the school board for 8 school years, and I'm excited to be running and to continue my tenure. Along with me being on the school board, things that I focused on is maintaining a positive budget, academic achievement, and then parent engagement. Something I'm championing for now is changes in teacher credentialing. I'm currently a principal of a middle school, and so I see the challenges on the ground when you cannot get the bodies in the classroom that you need because of credentialing. When I started on the board, our district was negatively certified, and so I'm proud to state that we've been positive since we've been on the board. Ms. Brunner has also talked to us about how we've increased our academic achievement, and so we'll be talking about that tonight, as well as parent engagement with the Million Father March and parent classes we've offered.
Our next candidate is Lisa Brunner.
Good evening. Thank you for hosting us. My name is Lisa Brunner. I am an incumbent. I'm running for my 3rd term. I originally ran in 2010 when our youngest daughter graduated Hayward High. I am the only candidate running that has children that went through our school, that has children, and the only board member with children that actually went through one of our high schools, Hayward High. I was PTA president. I was very active with the boosters. I was there watching the prior board make cuts in the classroom that were hurting the kids. They were one-time cuts. They were cutting programs. They cut things such as band, music, our GATE program, all the enrichment, and I was not about to let this become a remedial district. Children rise to your expectations, so I ran as a civically active parent. The district had nowhere to go but up. We were negative, financially certified negatively by the end of my first year. It became positive, and by the end of the 3rd year, we were able to reinstate our music and instruments, so I'd like to continue moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And Thank you. And Mr. Ken Rowden.
Hi. Good evening. My name's Ken Rowden, and I am not an incumbent. I'm running for the first time. I was a 30-year teacher in the Hayward Unified School District. I taught at Mount Eden High School. I also taught at King Middle School. And if you can remember back far enough, I taught at Shepherd Elementary School, which no longer exists. I was most successful at Mount Eden High School. I taught vocal music. That was my area of expertise, and I had an enormous enormously successful program. And I'm running because I have a strong belief in Hayward students, and my students that I've had over the years taught me that they can do anything if you expect them to do so. They will rise to the occasion. So I'm all about raising the quality of education our students get in our district. I'm all about raising our graduation rate. I'm all about success for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. My first question is about Measure H, and it'll go to Mr. McGee first. Measure H is on the November ballot. It's a bond measure to raise funds to update Hayward schools. Are you for or against this measure? Mr. McGee.
So I am for this measure. For me, what this is going to do is really help us improve our schools, especially when it comes to school safety. I was texting someone the other day and they were asking about safety in our campuses, and so there is a great need in regard to improving school safety. One of the things is building fencing around so then we have one entry, one exit point. The other thing is just renovating the schools, putting roofs where we need them, the interior of the classrooms, and making them modernized. And so this is what Measure H will help us to do along with the technology. So we have really increased our capacity to give out technology. We want to eventually become a one-to-one school district. And then in doing that too, we also have to look at the Wi-Fi, the infrastructure that will help with that. So I do support it just because our students and our teachers and our classified employees need to work and learn in the best environment.
Thank you. Ms. Brunner.
Yes, I also support Measure H. Modernization of our facilities is one of my major goals. If you visit the new schools compared to the older schools, it's like night and day. Along with modernization, it's not only safety we're improving, but technology, so that our students can be competitive in a 21st century world. Our present schools don't have enough bandwidth to support all our students if they were to go online at one time. The good thing about Measure H, it will also be self-sustaining because we're putting solar in the schools, which will then create a revenue of about $3 million each year savings from our electrical bill that can go back into the general fund and further be used. So we're not just modernizing, we're going green, and we're going to make a profit from that we can put back in the classrooms for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rowden.
I'm absolutely for Measure H. I've been out campaigning and I get a lot of questions about that. Some of the questions that I've gotten are, well, you know, what about oversight? And yes, I absolutely believe that there needs to be oversight, probably much better oversight than there have been in some of our bond issues in recent years, to make sure that the money is spent properly and to make sure that it's spent on the things that need to be spent for. For those folks that might consider not voting for Measure H, I would ask you to consider the alternative, and it's not good. So many of our schools need upgrading, and if you don't believe that, I invite you to go take a look at any of them, because it's absolutely imperative that we get modernization in. Teaching at Mount Eden High School, I would receive into my care many students who would come from King Middle School, which has been rebuilt. And the look on their face the first day at Mount Eden was something to behold. So yes, I'm for Measure H.
Thank you. This next question will begin with Ms. Brunner. Okay. Each year the district updates the LCAP plan to prioritize programs or projects to help struggling students. Are there any programs you would like to see added, or ones that you like that you want to see continued as part of the LCAP plan?
Okay, we have the Local Control Accountability Plan, which is the plan that goes along with our Local Control Accountability funding. What this funding did is it gave more flexibility and control to the districts so that you would basically spend on programs you needed. Services, actions, parent engagement. We've brought in a lot of culturally relevant teaching. That's been very necessary. For safety, we brought in and behavior and climate, the positive behavioral intervention program, and safety and health, quite a few of the safety and health programs. We've brought in a lot more parent engagement programs. Studies have shown that schools are successful. It takes money, small small class size and parent involvement, and that is something that's unique to the LCAP, is that it says schools need to have parents and community involved, and I've been very happy with that. That's been very positive. When you're involved, your children are more likely to be involved. And so I would say the culture, safety, and parent involvement have all been programs I'd like to continue to see growing.
Thank you. Mr. Rowden.
My fellow candidates have really checked the boxes for me too. All of that, and I'd like to consider one other very important factor. I know that the district has just recently adopted a visual and performing arts plan. It is ambitious. It is massive. It is a 5-year plan. And I know that right now a lot of that is depending upon grants that we receive from hither and thither. And I just would like to see, as with the new LCAP formula, that we are flexible enough that we can use that also for our visual and performing arts, because it's going to take money to implement the program that the district has adapted. And I think that it's one thing to adapt something, and it's another thing to implement it and see it through to the end. So thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. McGee.
Yeah, so this is a great question in my opinion, just because the LCAP is really local control. And so as a board member, what our job would be is to support the school sites in their decision. So very much so bolstering parent engagement, and then also the STEAM, so the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math is something that really is an item that we're trying to get at our schools, and then just giving the local control to our sites. And so at each of our sites, they have a site-based decision-making team as well as a school site council, so allowing those decision-making bodies to really shape how they spend that money.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mr. Rowden, and it's one I think is a common one for every school candidate to be asked. What is your take on charter schools? Are you in favor of bringing in charter schools or not? And do you have a difference if it's a nonprofit or a for-profit charter school? Mr. Rowden.
I'm not in favor of a for-profit charter school, for sure. I said this at a forum much like this last night. It's like a shotgun marriage between the state and charter schools and school districts, because we're required to consider and let them. In general, I'm not in favor of charter schools. I don't know. When I was a kid, I was raised that this is your school, and you went to your school, and that's where everybody in the neighborhood went, and everybody in the town went. And if you didn't like the way something was done, then you got in there and you fixed it, and you worked together to do that. You didn't just pick up stakes and start your own school or go somewhere else. So I think the best thing is for Hayward Unified to make our schools excellent enough academically and everything else wise too, so that people don't want to do the alternative and go to a charter school. And that's where my concentration would be, so that charter schools aren't as attractive as they seem. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGee.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of for-profit charter schools. I actually went to the State Board of Education in Sacramento to speak out against rocket ship. That was denied at the local level, county level, and then the state upheld that. I do believe that our schools can offer what families need, and that's what people can do to strengthen them is by being involved in the schools. One of the things as a board member is that you can only legally deny a charter school for one of 5 reasons, and people think that you can deny them all the time, which is not correct. We also cannot provide certain oversight. If they're doing what they're supposed to do, then we have to renew them. But we did make some changes with some of the charter schools in Hayward, because we saw that they were just putting students out after a certain state reporting time, as well as students weren't getting high school credit. So we made that charter school offer credit and also keep students longer than they wanted to do that.
And I think we're back to Ms. Brunner, who's going to finalize this question.
Okay, I definitely do not support for-profit charter schools, and Governor Brown last month signed a bill, AB 406, making future for-profit charter schools illegal in the state of California. And not only did CTA sign on, but so did the State Charter Association, because the for-profits were making them look bad. People see the word charter and think it's a magic word, and their child's suddenly going to outperform everyone else. It's always what you put into your child and your child's education. They'll succeed wherever there are. All of us that put our children in traditional public, they did well. We all put our time. We were fortunate. We are making, the good thing that it does is it does make our public step up and become competitive. Charters are not held to the same standard as traditional public. They don't have to have special ed. They don't have to allow our below basic and far below basic in English. They do not even have to hire credentialed teachers. They figure out their graduation rate differently. They can come to town, and it's not fair to our students. So, no, I don't support them in general.
Great, thank you. I think we're back to beginning with Mr. McGee. And the audience member who wrote this question began by saying, the Hayward Unified has a negative reputation, and many parents refuse to send their children to schools here in part of Hayward Unified. So what would you do to change that perception?
Yeah, I think that that's a fair question, and I know that some districts get a worse rap than other districts do. So what we've been really trying to do is become more open door. So an example of that is our family or parent engagement. Every school year we do the Million Father March district-wide, and so that's something that brings people to our schools. The other thing is that we've really bolstered the Parent Ambassador program, which again allows families to come to the schools and see what's really going on. We are exploring partnerships as well with the business community, and then really trying to improve academic achievement. As the state has realized that testing is not the end-all, be-all, they've put other measurements out there that we look at. So now we look at safe campuses, suspensions, academic achievement, and a variety of other factors that really states how well a school district is doing. So what I would do is just continue to have an open door policy for our school district.
Ms. Brenner?
Okay, I've always said with Hayward there's two issues. There's reality and there's perception. Perception's always been pretty bad. We're one of the cities where over the years, the last 20 years, the people bad-mouthing the districts most are a lot of our elected officials. They don't have children. They haven't stepped foot in our schools, yet they blame them for low tax bases. But if you really take a look, some of our neighboring districts have lower scores than we do, but their cities are proud. They support them. A community needs to support their schools. We're putting out there more of what's happening. I tell people when you look at test scores, it's not just a pass or fail. See how those scores fit in as part of the whole. You know, we're right about in the middle right now, on par with the state. Our graduation rates are 85%, on par with the state. For our traditional high schools, people look at me like, really? And then I can say, you know, we are 4 percentage points higher than the state for A through G college ready, but it's 50%. It sounds bad, but the state's at 46%. So you need to dig deeper, look at the data, and we need to get that information out. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rowden?
Would you read it?
I'll repeat that question, sure. A person from the audience, they wanted to say that they feel that Hayward Unified has a negative reputation, and they believe many parents refuse to send their children to schools that are part of Hayward Unified. So what would you do to change that perception?
I agree with what Ms. Brunner said about a lot of it is perception. There is an image problem that the district has. And, you know, from the inside, seeing it every day, I see so many, many good things. And I think our district needs to highlight those things. It's difficult once you get a bad reputation to ever recover from it. It takes time. And I've appreciated the board, the current board, in some of the decisions they've made. I do believe that they are on the right trajectory. And for that, a little to the side, I take this time to salute my fellow candidates up here, because I do like the trajectory that the board is on, and I want to be part of it. We need to close the achievement gap for our African American and Latino students. We need to improve climate and safety at our schools, and we need to support students and families of special education. And I'd like to implement that VAPA plan. Can you imagine what a new performing arts center will do for our perception in Hayward Unified Schools?
Thank you. I think we began that question with Mr. McGee, right? So now we're going to begin with Ms. Brunner. And You gave me a great segue, Mr. Rowden. My next question was about the arts. So, Ms. Brunner, how important are the arts, art projects, or the arts in general, to every grade, K through 12, in school?
Oh my God.
The arts are exceedingly important. They're enrichment. Enrichment programs are the things that make kids want to come to school, so they have to want to come to school. I always look at art as applied mathematics. If you look at any kind of art, you'll see a lot of geometry, the design work. Studies do show that students that take part in art, they score better on standardized tests, they do better in school, and they are more likely to go to college and succeed. So that is one of the reasons that we started the VAPA program, which is the Visual and Performing Arts program. And a reason that we specifically made it stand out is because we want more grant money. Like I said, one of our priorities when I came on the board of Mr. McGee was to reinstate the music programs that the previous board had cut. And not only did we reinstate choir and band at all of our elementary schools, we also provide all the instruments for our students so that every student that wants to take part can. So it's exceedingly important.
Thank you. Mr. Rowden.
The arts change kids' lives. The arts turn them into people and fine human beings. I look at it this way. What the arts are, if you can picture a stack of bricks, each one of those bricks being academics, math, science, English, foreign language. The arts are the mortar that hold those things together, and they absolutely infuse themselves into all of those other subjects. I have seen it change kids' lives. I've seen it keep kids in school and help them to graduate. I don't know how, if I had a dime for every kid that has said to me over the years, because of choir and because of music, I finished high school. I mean, it's very emotional for me. And I'm telling you, especially in this district, I think there's something in the water. We have talented kids, and we need to highlight that. And the arts are everything, as far as I am concerned.
And Mr. McGee.
Yeah, so the arts are extremely important. So at Mount Eden High School, they have a very robust art program, an art show, and all that type of stuff. Our district also engages in Art and March, and that's Art and March education. And then one of the things that we've been instrumental in is Mr. Rowden complimented the board, is approving the Visual and Performing Arts Master Plan. And in that, I was working with the Hayward Arts Council, who now has a spot at our Hayward Adult School. And one of the things that we're working with the superintendent on is, how do we get arts in the lower level? How can you do arts across curriculum? And then also, how do art projects span the grade levels? And so we're working on something where we can get artists in the classrooms with our teachers, who can then assist them with lessons that are art-based. And so when you look at the arts, we see that once you've done that as a student, then you grow developmentally a lot quicker.
Great, thank you. I think now we begin with Mr. Rowden, correct?
Yes.
No.
Sure.
I think Lisa began last time, so I just want to be fair. My next two questions are continuing on the path of student achievement. The first one is about gifted and talented students. Do you feel like the district is ignoring them or doing enough to help promote that gifted and talented nature and their excellence? And especially once they move up through middle school and get to high school, does the gifted and talented student no longer be helped? What do you think about the whole concept?
I'm going to work my way from the end of that question first. Does it need to be less when the student reaches the high school level? No, I think it's absolutely the reverse. What tends to happen, and I was a high school teacher, remember, so this is what I saw, is that gifted and talented students come to us, and then a lot of times they're not steered into courses that nurture that gift or that talent. They're steered into other areas because, I don't know, a counselor wants to do it that way, and so, or they consider the fine arts to be a waste of time or something like that. No, I absolutely. a teacher, when a previous board, that shall remain nameless, eliminated the GATE program in our district. And I was thrilled when it came back. And it needs to be followed through from kindergarten right up through 12th grade, for sure.
Thank you. Mr. McGee.
Thank you. And then it was this current board that Ms. Brunner and I sit on that brought the Gifted and Talented Education Program back. And so what we did was figured we needed to do something for all students, and our higher achieving students weren't being challenged as hard. And so we did restore funding to the GATE program. One of the other things that I'm excited about is our advanced placement courses, because that is also how students become challenged. And so when we have those courses, when they score, or not score, but when they earn certain grades, they get additional GPA credits, which also assists them as they're going for college and career. We have a number of classes that we have now made A through G, along with our career technical education classes that are becoming A through G as well. So when you look at what we're doing in Hayward, this is why families are selecting us again. You'll hear candidates stating that, oh, I'm on the campaign trail, they don't want to come to us, but families are choosing Hayward Unified again for these type of reasons.
Thank you. And Ms. Brunner.
Yes, I was a big supporter of bringing back the GATE program. As I said, I believe all children rise to your expectations. We not only have AP classes, we won a national award 2 years ago at all 3 of our high schools for both offering them and for a high pass rate for our students. We just were awarded the National Mathematical and Technical Institution Award. They are not only adding professional development and training for our teachers, they are also going to pay half the cost of the test for all of our students this coming year. We're building the new science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics building. We're not just going to move regular science classes into it. We've signed a memorandum of understanding with the college, Cal State East Bay, and they will be designing college-level science courses that are relevant to today, and that's what's going in there. We have the career pathways. Engineering and biomedical are the 2 popular ones. We work with industry for internships and jobs to see if that's how they really want to go. So we're offering a lot for our students.
Thank you.
And it's stable at secondary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk about the other end of the spectrum now. Those students that are really struggling, in part because they're newly arrived here in the United States, and in some cases they're unaccompanied by an adult relative. So what does our Hayward Unified School District do, or what can we do to ensure that these students get the help they need? And for that, I think we're going to begin with Mr. McGee.
Yeah, so we've addressed that, and one of the things we've done is we've got a newcomer academy where students go for a certain part of the school year, and they're focusing on the English language, that type of acquisition, and then how to be a student. I've visited some of the schools, as well as a school that I'm a principal in. Students who are newly arrived don't understand the concept of school. Some of them don't. And so what we've done is put them in an environment where they can learn that. And then once they get to a proficiency level, then they're moved into different schools. The other thing that we've done is our English language development program and English learners. And so we're really trying to focus on how students become stuck as long-term English learners, and then figuring out ways to get them to be English proficient. So when you're looking at a newcomer or an unaccompanied minor, we're really designing specific and specialized programs for them.
Thank you. Ms. Brenner.
Okay, yes, Hayward is the second most diverse city in the state, and we have the most diverse school district, and it's not unusual for maybe a dozen languages to be spoken at each school. We have the second largest group of unaccompanied minors in Alameda County after Oakland. We have the World Academy, which Mr. McGee mentioned, and it's for middle and high school students that have been in this country for less than 2 years and speak no English. Again, there's about a dozen languages spoken in this school. In the morning, they go to complete immersion classes, and then they go out into the general Tennyson and Chavez, and they take their afternoon classes. And these students really excel when they're in things like our regional occupation program and in the arts. And they say that gives them confidence where they want to speak. So again, access to other programs and giving these students confidence. We have bilingual programs, we have dual immersion programs, and we have the biliteracy seal. So we want students to be proud of their culture, but to learn English also. So,
thank you. Mr. Rowden, what's your take on this?
So one of the things that I would advocate, and I'm just going to focus on one thing because it takes some explanation, I think. One of the most disturbing things that I saw HUSD do a number of years ago was the elimination of the high school block scheduling system. And what that is an academic schedule that allows students to take 8 courses inside of a year as opposed to 6. It also allows them to take 3 classes per semester so that there's 90-minute classes so that there's more time focused on the individual students and their individual needs rather than having to go through it so quickly that material is missed. The thing is, it takes more money to run that program, and at that time the district saw it as a cost savings. Now it's obvious that it was just a blip on the radar screen way back when. You never heard words like credit recovery or cyber high in those days.
Thank you. We've been focusing on student achievement, and I want to move on to some more bigger policy issues that we're getting questions about. So I think we're beginning with Ms. Brunner, right? We began with Mr. McGee so now I'm going to ask a few questions that are more general policy. And this first one is one that's being debated throughout California. Here in Hayward, the school board is, all the members are elected at large. So should the school district change the way they do that and instead be elected by districts like they do in San Leandro and many other communities? So I think we're beginning with Ms. Brunner on that, correct?
Okay, I did read a lot on it because I hadn't actually made up my mind. Most of the districts that are going to by zone or by areas, it's because their boards were not diverse and did not represent the makeup of the city or the demographics. Our board we have one of the most diverse school boards, and that's usually mentioned when we go to the California School Board Association meeting and events about the diversity of our board and how we represent all segments of our constituency here in Hayward Unified. So I feel that you should have by zone if your board is not representing the diversity of the district, but we already are, so I really can't, I have no opinion on it at this time because right now it's doing what it's supposed to.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rowden, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to have to ask you to repeat. This is a concept that's new to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The board members, you're all elected at large. In a lot of cities, they have changed it and elect by districts. And some school districts have actually even been sued because they're not representative of the community, and changing to districts, the thought is that that will do more to reflect the diversity of a community. So do you think Hayward should continue to be all elected at large, or should you switch over to the district system?
No, I think the way we do it is the right way. That's my initial response to what you say without having ever studied it. Frankly, this is the first I've heard of that. When I think of like different geographical areas of the city, each having to have a representative on the board, that's kind of how it would work. Am I right? Is that?
Yes.
I think no, it just gives us another thing to be divided about. And I think we are so diverse in Hayward already. When I look at the board and when I look at our schools and I look at our students, we are a microcosm of what society is. And we're doing fine. Yeah, keep it the way it is.
Thank you. And Mr. McGee, your thoughts?
Yeah, that's one of the things that is coming up. And so as Ms. Brunner stated, we are a diverse board already, and that's what this law is really pertaining to. If we did go to the district areas, the board would really need to have a clearly defined equity policy, because cities and districts that are district elected, they really state that that's how they make the best decisions, because they have the equity policy. So one area does not always get more than the other. So if this board was forced to change it that way, then I would state we would need to look at that policy to really be in line and make the good decisions.
Thank you. Our next question, I think we're beginning with Mr. Rowden on this next one. And this is about the facilities project that bond measures like the proposed Measure H pay for. How do you propose that the public is informed about these facilities projects? And how can you make it easier for the public who pays for these to kind of keep track of what's being built, what stages that they're at, that kind of thing?
I think there's a variety of ways that you could do it. I think a Measure H newsletter from the minute it begins would be good, maybe once a month, something like that. I know that in our district we already put it on the website, so it's easily accessible there. And then I would really just encourage our public to also be engaged with what is happening at the sites. Come to board meetings, go to school events, see what's happening there. I think also our school sites could send out what's happening at their various schools, pictures, television interviews, radio interviews. Again, it goes to that idea of highlighting what's good in Hayward Unified. So.
Thank you. Mr. McGee.
Penny, what was the second part of the question, please?
How to keep the public informed about these facilities projects so that the public can keep track of where these projects are, what stages that they're at, because the public is the ones paying for them.
So one of the things that you hear some of us as candidates talk about is the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee and how they have to have more teeth and they have to do certain things. So I would definitely be urging our Bond Oversight Committee to be publishing regular reports. The other thing is I live in the Cherryland area, and so I drive by in the morning, and sometimes I'm like, why isn't there construction going on? So I'd email the superintendent and say, will you get us a tour of the Cherryland site and open it up to the community? And it was eye-opening because the principal showed up, teachers as well as community members came to tour it, and we had the architect there and the construction folk telling us what stage the buildings are in and things of that nature. So I would be hands-on. As we talk about field trips for our students, we need field trips for the community to visit the schools, see the construction that's happening now. So that's definitely how I would inform them of what's happening and keep them updated, letting them know that we're spending the money correctly as well.
And Ms. Brunner, what do you think?
Okay, we've moved forward, and it's been a discussion on how we can keep the public informed. We've been making sure that our website is up to date. You go under community, you go under bond, and then you will see the bond measures and where they are. You will also see minutes of the meetings for the Bond Oversight Committee, and I believe that the virtual tour for Cherryland is still up. So that's one way to get your information. The other thing that we have asked is that on our homepage, when we have things like the tour for the community of Cherryland, that it's posted on the front page. When we have work sessions on the bond measure, we make an extra announcement. We do want the public there. We want them asking questions, and we want them to know that we're using the money responsibly. So, so right now everything's on the site, and the schools also should be sending out more newsletters. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to start with another topic too, but it is more of a general policy. And I think this time we begin with Mr. McGee. What would you do as a board member to create a collaborative, positive relationship with the labor unions that represent the workers of the district? What would you do to make that a really good relationship?
Well, one of the things that I would do to strengthen that relationship is really bolster the communication. So as a board member, talking with our bargaining partners and talking with the union leads of each one. The other thing is we did something with our policy where we've given each of our bargaining partners time to come and address us outside of public comment to let us know things that are going well, but also let us know where things can be improved. And so those things are something that I would really recommend, is just really open communication. I know in previous schools years and boards, the communication wasn't there. And then where I've seen things break down is because the communication wasn't happening. So that's what I would definitely do to strengthen and keep going what we have.
Thank you. Ms. Brunner.
Yes, communication is key. There was a time when there wasn't any communication, especially between the union and the board. With our administration, each of the board presidents and their representatives meet with the superintendent and with HR at regular meetings to discuss what is happening in the district. While it might look like we don't have we actually have a good relationship with our labor partners. The Hayward Education Association, the teachers union, have gone ahead and endorsed both myself and Mr. McGee for re-election, and we're very happy about that. SEIU and AOD don't actually endorse, but you know, after all these years on the board, we're actually friends with a lot of those people, and we can discuss common things that we feel need to be improved, and then they follow policy and go through procedures to get that done. So communications, I agree with Mr. McGee, is probably the most important thing for a good relationship on all levels.
Thank you. And Mr. Rowden.
I think I sound like an echo, but it's what I believe. I believe communication is incredibly important between our HEA and the school district. I think one of the things that I would like to be able to do is go and have lunch with teachers at different schools once a month and listen to what their concerns are as a board member, listen to what their needs are, and listen to what their concerns are. It's just one more way of communicating. It's incredibly important to keep the avenue open between HEA and the board. I think once a month coming and reporting to the board at board meetings what's happening with labor relations would be a great thing. I think that happens, but not on a regular basis. So I would support that.
Great, thank you. I think we begin now with Ms. Brunner. And this audience member is asking, what could you do to make it easier for parents to come to a school board meeting and speak? And they say they have issues with childcare that prevent them from coming, or the fact that board meetings happen at dinner time. Is there anything that the board can do to help assist parents so that they feel they have time and the support to come to a school board meeting?
Our board meetings are scheduled ahead of time, and they're on Wednesdays, and open session starts at 6:30, and public comment starts soon after that. We could, some people do bring their children. It has come up about providing like maybe daycare out in front for that open session, if that's what's happening. Some meetings have more children than others. But what we've also talked about is actually bringing some of our board meetings to the neighborhood school sites and holding it in the community so that parents are close to their own home. They could even walk to their community school, and then that way they can attend. It's not taking so long to get here, and they're more likely to bring their children. It's easier to offer daycare because we have the classrooms. So that's one of the things that we've talked about, to get more community members at our meetings, because we want the public here and we want to hear what concerns the public. Again, communications is important at all levels.
Thank you. Mr. Rowden.
I think the time that we give them to speak at the board meetings, for whatever reason, it's only at 2 minutes now. It used to be 3. And I understand the reason behind it and everything, but I think it really is difficult to get everything said that you need to say for a parent. It can be intimidating coming up to that microphone there in this room. I think we need to give them a return to giving them 3 minutes. That's one thing. It might be nice to, in addition to moving a board meeting to the sites, like a different place each month, quarterly, perhaps, on a Saturday. When a parent has to work at night, it's very difficult to get to a board meeting at all. So maybe quarterly, once a quarter, just have an open session meeting for parents to come and meet the board and voice their concern. I want to say that I'm retired from teaching, and so I have time during the day, and my phone line will be open to parents.
Thank you. Mr. McGee.
Yeah, so as we stated, Ms. Brunner mentioned that the board has discussed having meetings at the sites, which do bring them to the community. The other thing that we've looked at too is how do we have more of a dialogue? How do we do more work sessions as well? So that way we can get community input. The other thing is really finding out what community members want us to drill down deeper into and then focusing on that at a meeting. And it could be at a regularly scheduled meeting, or we've already done meetings on the weekend on Saturdays and things of that nature at the district office where people can come and then really hear us discuss a certain issue, and then they're able to give more than 2-minute input at these type of meetings.
Thank you. Now I'm going to begin with Mr. Rowden. I think it's your turn. And this is a question from somebody who's stating in their generation, the school had a park-like atmosphere and open space that you could use after school on the weekends. And now with a lot more dense housing, a lot of children are not finding a place to play outside of the school hours. So what can the district do to help schools be open after hours or on weekends or during summer to offer those spaces for play?
Yeah, I remember the school was the center of life when I was growing up. It's where everybody went for everything, whether it was school related or not, especially on weekends. We do need to provide space. I think at our elementary schools, it should be open on the weekends, and that, of course, means that there needs to be some sort of supervision. So that could range anything from parent volunteers to paid staff. I think our YEP programs could be expanded so that there are additional activities for students during after-school hours. I know that for years when I taught at Mount Eden, the high school show choir program, which was outside the 6-period day, was after school from 4 to 6 p.m., and it gave students something to do, and that can be followed through in many different disciplines.
Thank you. Mr. McGee.
Yeah, so one of the things that we already do is we work with HARD, the Hayward Area Rec Department, and so they help us out by having certain parks that are connected to the schools open. They service them, so there's an agreement. At Cherryland, one of the great things that this tour did is that we had 3 or 4 of the HARD board members there, and we engaged in a discussion about how can Cherryland be open to the community on the weekend and in the evening, because where the school is constructed, it took up a lot of the soccer field, and the board was not aware that the soccer field was going to be removed. So then there was this discussion about how can HARD work with the district to build the capacity that the school can be protected in the evening when we don't have staff on duty and the weekend. So those are things that the board is already engaging in. We're looking at the Bidwell area to have that open and other parts. Burbank is a great example of a partnership between HARD and the district.
Thank you. Ms. Brunner.
Yes, growing up, schools were open to the public, but because of insurance, vandalism, and children getting hurt, the schools are locked. And that's sad, but we do have after-school programs at all of our schools, K through 12, and we have students at all the schools till 6 in the evening, and they basically are monitored, they're watched. I would like to see us expand the type of programs that we have at both Burbank and at Bret Harte, where the parks districts on weekends and evenings, they actually run, monitor, and are responsible for the fields. And we could do that at a lot of our schools, and I'd like to see that continue, because it does seem like a ways that we have these large playgrounds, these large green spaces, but they cannot be used because there is no one in charge. So taking advantage of more of those type of opportunities with the Parks District is what I'd like to see expanded.
Thank you. This next question is going to begin with Mr. McGee. Can you talk about the financial health of the district and the concern that it's a continuing issue, and how would you address it?
So the district is positively certified, meaning that we can meet our financial obligations 3 years out. That's the state requirement, as well as we have a reserve. One of the things that we are looking at is how to make the money go where it's supposed to go. So for instance, special education is required, but it's unfunded, a lot of it. So we've made decisions on how do we curtail the overspending in special education. The other thing is that you'll hear the structural deficit. So we've made decisions that also affect that to reduce that deficit. And so, again, the board and the staff have been working very hard and very well together in doing that. We get regular updates, as well as we're starting a financial group again. It used to be called FITAG, where it meets monthly just to talk about the financial health and then make decisions and really give recommendations to the board on the district's fiscal solvency.
Thank you. Ms. Brunner.
Okay, right now through Moody's and Poor, our district is AAA positive certified. The AAA, we do not have increased revenue, but the positive outlook, because we have gone ahead and worked on our structural deficit and professional development. We're keeping an eye on it. When we do a budget for the school district, it's 3 years out. Like most public entities, we are paying more and more into PERS and STIRS. It's not that our employees are getting more, but we're paying the backfill from the bad years under Schwarzenegger. When he was governor, it was a pay-as-you-go. So like last year, we got an extra $11 million in tax revenue. Sounds great, but we paid an extra $16.5 million towards PERS STIRS. So we keep an eye on things, and when we do make cuts, we're looking at the structural deficit, things that will save us in the long term, not one-time cuts, like cuts to programs. We look at things like reorganizing administration. Right now we're looking at going solar with Measure H that will produce an additional $3 to $4 million a year.
Thank you.
Those are the things we're looking at.
Thank you. Mr. Rowden.
So, being a newcomer to the board, I'm not always privy to the inside information on exactly how the budget's doing. But it seems to me my two fellow candidates have checked most of those boxes. So, I had a similar question in a forum like this not too long ago, and somebody asked me, where do you feel that the wastage is? And I'll focus on that for a second. I'll just give one example. I do not understand the purpose of area superintendents. That's an extra $500,000 to $600,000 a year that could be spent so much better in other areas. I know when I was a teacher, I never even saw the area superintendent, and I never really understood what his purpose was in even existing. And I think those positions should be eliminated. And I think if there's waste there, I can probably find it in other places too.
Thank you. This next question will begin with Ms. Brunner, right? I think it's your turn, Ms. Brunner. What would you like the relationship to be between the school district and the new Hayward Library?
I was actually a library commissioner for 8 years. I term limited off the year we passed the bond. I've always supported literacy at many levels. I used to take my kids there for story time when they were little. So the relationship that we built during my tenure on the Library Commission is the After-School Homework Club, and a grant also brought in the computer labs there. We would track the students and what they were doing from after school to the library close. 85% of the students that came to our public library were doing homework. They don't have a computer at home. So the library has been a big support to our schools, and I'd like to see that continue. They also have these dispensers, like portable, instead of dispensing candy, books at some of our schools on the other side of the freeway because it's too far for the kids to come. Everything that the library does encourages literacy, and I fully support working with them and even expanding those programs.
Thank you. Ms. Rowden, Mr. Rowden.
I was thinking the other day that it would be so cool if we could have some kind of a traveling book program that it's like considered like the Hayward Public Library is like the mothership, and from there books circulate out to the public schools and have different like I know we have the Weeks branch and all of that, but maybe actually have those different branches at the sites so that students can that can't get to the library for whatever reason can do it there. The other thing is, I would like to see at the library, and maybe it's already there, I don't know, some kind of a small community room in which there's a nice little stage and a grand piano, and perhaps like a community recital room could go there. You could even have an artist series, and it would just be awesome to see something like that, because otherwise we'd have to do it in our Performing Arts Center. Oh wait, that's right, we don't have one.
Thank you. And Mr. McGee.
I think that the relationship between the school district and the library should really be enhanced. We do have some coordination between the after-school programs, but one of the things that I've been really trying to ask our staff to figure out is how do we have every student get a library card automatically, just like when you turn 16, you get a license. So that's something that I'm hoping we can do, and then encourage more field trips to the library. Cal State Hayward is actually renovating their library tremendously. So when I was asking about that, they stated it's not going to be one of those sit-down, quiet libraries all throughout the library. There's going to be a lot of interactive things happening in the library. There's going to be these 3D printers and some virtual reality, also meeting spaces and then quiet spaces. And so really looking at the upgrades that libraries can do to make themselves more attractive to students as well.
Great, thank you. I'm going to now do our last question, and then we'll do the closing remarks. And I'm going to combine two questions from the audience that sort of overlap, and they also kind of throw back to your very beginning opening statement when you talked about your relationship to the school districts. People would like to know, do you have a personal relationship to the school district, like being a parent or being a former teacher, or have other roots in the district? And also, a person would like to know, when was the last time you volunteered to serve students either inside or outside the classroom? It can be in the community, not necessarily in a classroom, but when did you actually connect to students and serve them in some way? So we'll begin. I think, Mr. Rowden, it's your turn.
Well, yes, I'm very connected. For 30 years, I was a teacher in the Hayward Unified School District, and I can tell you, people tell you when you retire after a couple years, you won't even think about it anymore. They couldn't, in my case at least, they couldn't be more wrong. My goodness, people would tell me, you need to get a life, and my response to them was always, everybody has the life that they choose, and I am so happy that I chose the life that I had as a teacher. I miss it every single day. Yes, I'm still active. I tend to do it at Mount Eden High School because I know people there. Last year I built the set for their musical under the auspices of a new teacher. It was the first thing I did out of retirement because he needed help. I love going there. I'm welcome to drop in on classes, and I do it frequently.
Thank you. And Mr. McGee.
Yeah, so I've been a teacher in the district. I also taught in San Leandro, San Lorenzo, and Castro Valley Unified School District. I also have roots in the community, so I do a lot of volunteering. I show students how to referee basketball games. I'm a basketball referee, and so I used to do college on the NAIA and junior college level. So now I do high school and Catholic youth organizations. So you'll see me in the community refereeing basketball games, just as well as volunteering tutoring. I used to, for a limited time, do some work at the library, working with people and teaching them how to read and write. So Hayward is where I am. Hayward is where I have felt I'm made in Hayward. And really, this is a great community, and I look at leveraging what's happening with the schools and our local elected officials as well to get them to have buy-in to the district and the city as well.
Thank you. Ms. Brunner.
Okay. Like I said, I'm a parent. I'm the only one with children. I got very involved with schools, again, because of what I had heard about the schools. I was PTA president. I helped start the athletic boosters at Hayward High when they cut the funding to JV sports. I'd be working those snack bars. I'd bring my kids to work those snack bars. They were part of the CYO sports program, the Catholic Youth Organization. We helped with that. I paint murals. Right now I'm volunteering over at Eldridge. I like to paint, and that's how I'm spending part of my retirement. So when it's projects here, I work a lot with Star Arts. And we encourage students to come and help. When it came to my children and their friends, their committees, their kids needed tutoring. I tutored many of them. And I attend a lot of events. We just went to the dessert theater over at Mount Eden. It was a date night for myself and my husband. Our date nights are school events. So he's very active too. This is our home. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank all three candidates. I have to tell you, this has been the easiest one to moderate. I really appreciate how cooperative you are and collaborative. So what we're going to do now is have our 2-minute closing statements, and the way the league likes to do it is to begin not with the person who went first, but with the person who went last for the opening statement. So we're going to begin with Mr. Rowden, then we'll go to Ms. Brunner, and then finish with Mr. McGee. You have this 2-minute closing statement, and we'll begin now with Mr. Rowden.
I feel like I already made my closing statement with that last question, but I'll give it a whirl. First of all, I have enormous respect for the two candidates that are sitting beside me, and I think our city would be lucky to have any of the three of us up here. That being said, I'm running because I want to be part of the trajectory that I see the district going in. I think it's positive. I think it's going in the right direction. I've given my life for 30 years to my students. I can tell you that my day started at 6:45 a.m. and did not end ever before 6 o'clock p.m. and oftentimes well after that. And so that little statement that I made earlier about people said you needed to get a life, and I said you have the life that you choose, and this is what I choose. Still today, when I go over to the classrooms and I stand in front of the students, they lift my spirits every single time when I see them. I find them to be smart, I find them to be intelligent, I find them to be creative, and I want to continue to serve in that capacity. I am who I am, and I am a 30-year teacher. I think the board could use one, and I would humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brenner.
Okay, he makes me wish we had 3 seats open. I firmly believe that education is a great equalizer in life. I've seen how people have improved their lives and the lives of their families through education, and we've encouraged our children to go to college, which they did. Okay, our kids aren't special. They're special to us, but children will rise to your expectations. I'd like to continue to move forward with Hayward Unified with academic improvement, technology and safety improvements, modernization, keeping an eye on the budget as we go forward. I want everyone to know that we offer an excellent education in Hayward, and I want the perception to be positive. So we're working along both reality and perception. Hayward is my home. I'm going to live here for the rest of my life. And our students are our future. And when people badmouth our schools, they're badmouthing our children. And I believe we're working in the right direction, and I'd like to keep going. And so I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. McGee.
So I'm a lifelong learner and a lifelong educator. I've worked in education since 1995 when I graduated as a classified employee, so I was an instructional aide. Then I transitioned to becoming a teacher and now a school site principal. So I believe that the perspective I bring to the board is one of all levels. So I'm dedicated, and you've seen that. You see Ms. Brunner at a lot of the events. She lives at the schools. And so one of the things that we do is we don't resident in the school. We don't stay at the schools like you'll hear some candidates stating, because when you have board members there, things sometimes don't happen. But you will see us volunteering, going to the Cherryland read-in that they host every year, going to schools throughout the year, checking out what's going on. The other thing that we've done that I'm proud of that this board has really put effort and energy in is to parent engagement. And so again, you can see that through efforts such as the Million Father March. That's now not only a first day of school year thing, but something that we're doing now monthly with the parent engagement. I'm proud that I'm endorsed by the Hayward teachers, and I humbly say thank you that the Hayward Education Association is endorsing me along with Alameda County Democrat Club, and then just really wanting to continue the work that we're doing. We've come a long way since we've been on the board. When we first got on the board, we were very last in Alameda County when it came to student achievement, but now when you look, you see that we've increased. We're no longer last, and we're looking to continue moving forward. And so you can do that with this leadership, with this board leadership that has the vision, that has really found out how to work well together, as well as really hold our staff accountable. So I would appreciate your vote, and I look forward to serving another 4 years. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you for this great forum. I always enjoy the league with the fairness and the way it's set up. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You've all been watching a candidate forum produced by the League of Women Voters, and on behalf of the League and our audience, we want to thank our candidates for joining us and for your willingness to run for this important public position. And before we finish, I just want to give a thank you to the volunteer crew and to Hayward City Hall for their role in bringing this information to the public. For further information on all the candidates, ballot measures, see a copy of the ballot in your precinct, we invite you to visit the website offered by the League of Women Voters California at smartvoter.org. Also, we welcome anybody who would be interested in being a new League member, both men and women. So please check out our information table out in the lobby and pick up a membership brochure and informational handouts about the proposition. And we also want to remind everybody, don't forget to vote on Tuesday, November 6th. An informed citizenry is essential to making democracy work. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you. Help me thank our candidates. Thank you.